Welcome to the On Purpose Investor. My name is Eric, and this show is where intentionality meets investing in yourself and your finances.
And I'm Josh, and together we'll explore the strategies, insights, and stories combined with inspiration and motivation to help you live with purpose and make an impact.
Now, whether you're a seasoned investor or just getting started, join us each week as we dive deep into the world of intentional investing. Welcome to the On Purpose Investor podcast. I'm your host, Eric, with my new co-host.
What's up, guys? My name is Josh. I am excited to talk with all of you guys today. Eric, it's an honor, man. I'm excited to be here. Yeah. And this is also going to be a lot of fun. So I'm just ready to jump right in, dude. It's going to be a blast.
It really is. Y'all, you know, for the past almost 100 episodes, I've been sharing the stage with my amazing wife, Tiffany. And she has left the building on great terms. She has kicked off her own business, Insight CFO Services.
Yeah, Tiffany is amazing. I'm so excited. You married a boss lady. Like, she really is on it, man.
She is an incredible woman that has no barriers to where she can go. And I'm super pumped for her. She's actually at a team meeting this week. She's assembled a whole team. You know, when she does something, she don't do it small.
No, she goes all out.
She goes all out, and she kills it. Whatever she's doing, she's killing. So I'm supporting her by helping run the household, take care of the kids, and you know, do that stay-at-home dad kind of look. But you know, it's not really all that bad. It is busy. It is tiring. But, you know, I love it. Love those boys of ours, and I love supporting Tiffany even more.
Yeah, I love that too. And, you know, getting to know you guys out there, I'm sure we'll get her on the show at some point. But I also married a super awesome, amazing, wonderful my wife is short, little redhead named Rachel, and she's an amazing. She's my partner as well. And so, you know, as we get to recording some episodes and talk about our journey, I'll have to talk a little bit about her. She is the person that sort of manages the finances and keeps me from overspending. Because, dude, I love to go in Home Depot. And that's the downside. You know, people like to buy trinkets. If you're out there and you played that cash flow game by Robert Kiyosaki, you know, I'm the guy. I want all the doodads and the trinkets, man. But
oh my gosh.
Home Depot, I need to go in to buy one refrigerator for a unit. And now I want to buy 5 refrigerators because they're awesome.
Oh my gosh. Lowe's had a crazy discount thing about a year ago. And they kind of flubbed. And they messed up their coding. And I bought 5 entire kitchens for the price of 2.
Yes.
It was the buy more, save more.
Yes.
And there was this hack to it that if you just put a couple of microwaves in your cart and then you throw a stove and a fridge in there, all of a sudden your stove and fridge are like 70% off. It was nuts. It was nuts. So now, you know, I'm dealing with a garage slap full of appliances that were intended to go into our cabins up in Helen, Georgia. But we had a bit of a setback on that, which I do want to talk about that project on another episode, just how we took it down. What did we do to take it down in the market like we have today? Just a quick little long story short, just going to sum it up. We sold 2 properties. We relinquished 2 properties and 1031 tax deferred exchanged them into the 2 cabins up in Helen. Now, that's a whole process we'll get into on a different episode on how we did that. But it hasn't been all, you know, rainbows and sunshine up there. We've spent a ton of money. We've had a ton of setbacks, almost 4 months of dead time up there that I will absolutely learn from and not make that mistake again.
Well, it's so funny you bring that up. I have some questions I'd like to ask you.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about this. You know, you're talking about this deal and other deals that you've done. I mean, you talk about the mindset of really, from my perspective, not just the mindset of an investor, but I call it the mindset of a champion. You know, I tell people all the time that great investors are like lions in the forest. Like lions don't sit around and wait for the gazelle to come to it.
Amen.
The lion goes to the gazelle. Do lions eat gazelles? I'm totally
or zebras.
Or zebras, you know. But let me ask you this: will you share with us a time? It could be this one or some other time. Talk to us about a time that you faced adversity, and what did you do to get your mind right? I mean, speaking to those of us out there that are really, I know there's something I'm constantly working with, is developing the mindset of a lion. Okay. What What is that like for you?
Well, I think first you have to identify what is that mindset of a lion and what are you now. So you have to know what you're comparing from to know what you're comparing to. So you first have to identify, we have both read Scott Alexander's Rhinoceros Success.
Oh, yes.
We know that book inside and out, and we know that the majority of people in this world are cows grazing a pasture.
Yep.
They eat what's beneath them. They don't go hunting for their food. They accept what is provided, and they make it work. But on the other hand, a rhinoceros charges through the jungle and gets what it wants. And that's what rhinoceroses do.
That's it. My favorite part of that book, by the way, is the first chapter where he says, "Good morning. You're waking up now, and your wife loves you because you're a fully fledged 2-ton rhinoceros rolling out of the bed." And I'm
with
like,
6-inch armor-plated skin.
yes. I'm like, that's me. Let's charge.
So, identifying, are you a cow still grazing in a pasture? Maybe you've upgraded. Maybe you're not a cow anymore. Maybe you are some type of creature that does harvest, does go gather and bring it back home, but is not getting wildly adventurous. You have to identify where you are. And I know I'm using animals as an example, but it works for me. So early on in our investing career, I was absolutely a cow. I was grazing. And how I dealt with adversity then is so different than how I deal with adversity now. So a story of how I dealt with adversity early on, one of the first couple of properties we bought, we inherited a tenant. And in that, it was a triplex. And in the inheritance of said tenant, we also inherited their past due rent. We also inherited their lease, if you want to call it that. We also inherited all the problems. So we bought the property. It was a great deal, and that's why we bought it with the tenant in place. It was just such a great deal. And the adversity we faced was figuring out, how do you react to someone telling you you are something you're not? When someone yells at you and says, "You're a horrible person. You're just trying to steal money from me. You're going to displace my children. We're going to have to live in the car. We don't even have a car, so I guess we're going to live on the streets." And when someone tells that to you, you have a choice on how to react. Now, today, in today's version of Eric, I know how to choose how to react.
Right.
Well, back then, I didn't know how to choose how to react. So, of course, my wife and I get on speakerphone with this nice lady.
Right.
And she would say something to us, and we would respond something bigger, right? My wife's stepmother, a long time ago, they used to run rental properties probably 15 years, 20 years ago. And she would always say, "You might be a B word, but I'm the B word with the money." And that's how she would, I guess, deal with her problems. But that's kind of how I was dealing with that problem. We fought fire with fire. And we know you can't fight fire with fire. No. You'll never put it out. You'll never extinguish the flame. Nothing will ever be resolved until you fight the fire with something that disposes of said fire.
Yep.
So back then, I was fighting fire with fire. And it took a lot of, internal work. And I know you love this. It took a lot of journaling. It took a lot
There it is, journaling.
It took a lot of mental fortitude to understand that how I wasn't the version of me that was going to get me to the next version of myself. And so I had to really just dig down deep and say, what's wrong with the way I think? What's wrong with the way I react? And it's not that there's something wrong with it, but how do I need to evolve so that I can deal with bigger problems? Because right now I'm dealing with this tenant that, sure, they're a pain in the neck. I need them out of the house. The property's not safe. I think they're cooking meth in the closet. I don't know. It's not safe. It's not great. But that is going to be a very small problem for me in 5 years. Because in 5 years, I'm going to have 20 or 30 of these things.
So let me ask you this. Let's assume that situation happened today, because you're talking about how previous Eric would have solved that problem. But with you and your current mindset today, how would you, the same situation again, now you're got to call the tenant, but today, what would you and Tiffany say if you called that same situation?
Yeah, so I wouldn't pick up the phone and call them. I would go there.
Right.
I'd go there in person. And I would, Bill Cook is a great mentor of mine. And he said, deals are rarely done through email and by the phone. Deals are most often done, and the greatest deals of all are done in person. And even if it's an interaction with a tenant, there's a deal to be made, right? If you're offering cash for keys and you're like, "I want you out of the property, I'll give you $100, I'll give you $1,000, whatever the number is," If you're doing that by the phone, they're going to think you're up to something. You know, they're gonna assume you're the landlord, you're the rich landlord, that you're just pulling strings and they're your puppet. You got to go in there face to face. You have to truly be empathetic or
empathetic.
You have to truly be empathetic to what their situation is. Whether you agree that their situation is out of their control, whether you agree that, you know, it is actually a situation or not, be empathetic to it. Hear it. Offer them just some condolences for their situation, and you deal with it through just connecting with that person. Whether they're a horrible person to deal with or not, you have to connect with them.
You know, something that you did too, I called you for a little bit of counsels a couple of weeks ago. I had a pad split guest, and this was my first time doing it. I've only been a pad split host now for about 3 months, so I'm now on my first member that has gotten way behind, and they got that issued the upcoming termination notice. And I know you told me, because I was ready to throw the hammer at it, like, nope, peace out. But you were like, no, you know, communicate with them, be empathetic, be firm, but be empathetic. And I did that. So I contacted the person and just said, hey, you know, I'd love to know what's going on. I can't let you continue, but I want to work with you. Is there something that I can do? I have this flexibility to give you this amount of days. If I meet you and give you this flexibility, can I have the expectation that this is the steps that you'll take to get caught back up? And then going forward, I even said going forward, what if I drove over and I'll even sit down and help you come up with a budget? And do you know that Pad Split has this ability for credit repair? In other words, showing them options to not just improve the situation for me, but then I went one step further to say, and your future. I didn't word it like that, but credit repair, let's give you a skill, and then let's help you get to your next step. Not only did that Pad Split member last week get caught back up, but sent me a message to tell me thank you. They've said that they're on a goal to be the best Pad Split person. Their account now shows that they're ready for like the next week or whatever.
That's awesome.
And they have followed up with me to see if I will come over and help them create a budget.
That's incredible. And, you know, there's that quote that goes around that is so true. If you help enough people get what they want and need, you too shall receive what you want and need. And by helping that person, whether you did it to get paid, whether you did it to make the property perform, or whether you did it because you really wanted to just genuinely help that person, no matter what the why is, fact is you poured into them in some way and you helped them get to where they need and what they want. And if you do that in all of your relationships, you know, pour yourself into people that are worth pouring into, right?
That's right.
You know, you don't want to, you know, keep, you know, throwing apples in a barrel that's bottomless. It'll never fill up, you know, but, you know, help enough people get what they want and need in life, and you too shall receive the same.
Yep. So, you know, just one final question for me as far as mindset goes. You know, when you face something extreme, like I'm sure at this point in your career, you know, you face times where, you know, from a financial standpoint, you probably felt a little bit of pain, and it took a certain amount of mindset to get in there and go, I'm going to deal with the pain, but I'm going to get through to the other side. You know, because I think there's a certain point where a lot of investors bail. And we'll talk more about some particulars of my story maybe on a future show. But I know I had a point too where I was a real estate investor and then left real estate investing for like 5 or 6 years because I had a really bad situation. I met that wall, and at that point, I'm sad to say I quit. Thank God I got back, you know, a couple years ago. But in your case, when you hit the wall, the really bad wall, what do you tell yourself? How do you walk through that?
Well, it takes me back to why do we do the on-purpose investor? The on-purpose investor is not about being on purpose in just your financial investments. It's about investing in yourself. And that is something the year of 2023 and the 2024 has taught Tiffany and I. We faced a very adverse situation this year in our relationship. And if it wasn't for the investment that we each poured into ourselves, I don't know where we would be right now. And so that's why I'm going to, you know, say, how do I face these issues of adversity? It's all about investing in the real estate that's in between your two ears. And that is the biggest and best and biggest and just the most amazing return on investment you'll ever get. And to actually make progress, you have to be coachable, even if it's from yourself, right? You have to be coachable, meaning you don't just go sign up for a program and take notes on everything that they told you and not apply it. because you are telling yourself, oh, that's for other people. I'm not doing that. That's not who I am. I'm not doing that. No, it's for you, and you need to challenge yourself to accept that different could be good, right? So your question, like, how was your question? How am I facing adversity?
Yeah, just when you face that most difficult point, what is your self-talk?
Oh boy. So a lot of the self-talk is that it's temporary, and in the Bible, the great book, this too shall pass. I keep that in my mind really heavily, because this, no matter the situation, no matter what anybody goes through, it will come to pass.
That's right. It didn't come to stay.
That's right.
It came to pass.
That's right. And if there's one fact in this world, well, there's two main facts in this world. When you die, you die, and when you die, you still owe taxes, right?
That's right.
Death and taxes, those are the most two guaranteed things that you'll ever have in this world, unless you're a very savvy real estate investor. You can avoid those taxes, right? But with where was I going with that, Josh?
We were talking about mindset, self-talk.
Yeah, so the self-talk. You have to have this abundant mentality around everything in your life. Yes, there were times when our bank account was just hovering around zero, and our rent roll is pretty big, but it rolls in about the 4th or 5th each month. But about the 6th to the 10th, all the mortgages come out too. And, there has definitely been times where a septic system went out, and an HVAC system went out, and a roof went out right at the same time that all the mortgages were coming out. And we had just renovated a big project, and we were depleted on our reserve account. And it's like, I really don't know if those mortgages are going to bounce or not. Now, our private lenders and our personal people that we owe money to on mortgages, they get paid first. That's right. No matter what. The banks, I will say we never got late on a bank payment, but I absolutely have gotten on the phone and said, hey, I need an extension this month. I'm not too proud to say that I have called banks and I have told them, hey, I have made, 40 on-time payments, and number 41 is going to be about 4 days late. Because, we had to figure out, where are we going to get this money? But it came from the mindset of, there is so much money in this world, and if I am attracting money, it will come to me in some way, shape, or fashion. And having that abundant mentality that money is not finite. There's so much of it out there, and it is for you. Now, how did I get to that point? Well, it was I even shared with you on our latest adventure up to the hike that we did.
Yep.
A little bit of the daily affirmations and the daily journaling prompts that I do about money. It's James Wedmore's program. His program's called Business by Design, but inside his program he has one sub-program called Mind Your Money, and he really shifts the way you think about money. We all have a story to tell ourselves about money, whether it's stories that were imposed upon us or stories that we came up with, of I can't afford that, I can't do that, I can only make so much, I would never spend $1,000 on a watch, I would never spend X amount of dollars on this. Those are stories we tell ourselves. And to break those stories and to break your belief in where money is and where it comes from and how much can you have, to break those beliefs, you have to start rewriting the narrative about what is money to you. So that's how I would say that, I now face adversity in such a different way, and my mindset about facing challenges, whether it's, fiscal or emotional or, just familial, family issues. It all comes from that inner work.
To kind of piggyback on that too, a practical exercise that I recently did. And again, with this being my first episode kind of recording too, we'll get into my background maybe a little bit more later, but I'm not as far along in the race as you're a few miles ahead of me. But having said that, so, we're trying to get out of the beginner phase and really push into 2024 for us is the year of the wealth builder. That's what we say at our house. We are wealth builders. Mm-hmm. We are in this race and running it. But I've had to work on my mind a lot too, which is why I really appreciate your thoughts, because it's something that I'm growing on. But part of this process, I attended the Financial Freedom Principles class with Gary Johnston, which was absolutely amazing. Yeah. And if you're out there listening, you've not taken that course, you need to do it because it's eye-opening. He's like you. He's always journal, journal, journal. I am not a journaler, but I know I need to be, and I'm becoming one. But one night we went home after we played cash flow with some folks, and I won't get into that, but like I wrote down things that I believed about myself, and I started writing down the things that I thought I can do. And then I said, well, now let me write the list of things I can't do. And one of the mindsets that I'm shifting this month is I realized that my list of I can'ts almost quadrupled my list of I cans. Now, the questions I ask myself is, why is that? And then number two, I believe, being a person of faith, that we are all created with a destiny and a purpose.
Yeah.
So if I believe that I am created with a destiny and a purpose, it means that what I am put on the earth to do is infinitely greater than the things that maybe I wasn't put on the earth to do. And so if you're out there listening to this show, I would challenge you to sit down and do that. And it's okay to be critical, because I'm reflecting, why was my list of things that I can't do greater than the list of things that I can do? Because I can do great things. I am doing great things. Mm-hmm. I will do great things. I'm going to do bigger things tomorrow than I am doing today. But I never knew I had that mindset until I wrote it down.
And there's a power of writing something down. You know, everyone has lofty goals and ambitions in life, but it's usually in their head. And when
the wealth building process is in your mind. Danny says that all the time, and he's so right. That's something. And I recognize too, that's why I need to be a better journaler, is because I need to identify what's in my mind, or else it's just self-talk.
Yep. And all that self-talk is very motivational, but it rarely leads to action.
Right.
And to take your first step into just taking massive action is to just start writing down, what do you want to become? What do you want to be? What legacy do you want to leave this world when you go? Because we're all going to die, and I hate to be so morbid, but we're all going to die. And either you're going to be a picture on a wall that's forgotten about, or you're going to be a story that's told. And those are pretty much the two things that you're going to have.
Yep.
What legacy are you going to leave? Are you just going to be a picture on the wall? Or are you going to be in the stories of your grandchildren? And are you going to be part of the stories of, here's how my family broke the generational curse of poverty, or broke the generational curse of, not having, massive wealth, or, broke the curse of not being giving and not being charitable? What generational curse do you need to try to lift and make it better for the next generation?
Yeah, I think that's huge. And, and I guess my final thought on all this, and what I'm taking away from what you're sharing today, is in its most simplistic fashion, mindset and all that. I think it's when we focus less on what we want to become and focus more on who we want to become.
Man,
I can face my trials as an investor, but I can face my trials as a husband, as a father, as a mentor, as a person who wants to leave a legacy in my community. If I focus on who I want Josh to be, that is infinitely more important than what I want to be. For me, anyways, we talk about on-purpose investor. Real estate is not Josh. Real estate is the tool that Josh uses to become the person that I want to be. And that education, as you said, and I love this, it starts in the mind. It starts with educating yourself. And for those of you that know me, this is the reason why I am not a journaler, but I have journaled very poorly this year. But I recognize that most successful people like you and so many other of my mentors, they do it in different ways, but everybody takes the time to identify in some form the thought in their mind. And I know that's something that I'm really work on, because 20 years from now, I want my kids to say, this is who my father was.
Yep.
I don't really want them to talk about real estate. I want them to acknowledge it, but I want them to say, this is who Josh was.
That's right. Oh, Dad.
Dad.
So I want to take a minute and get out of the mindset stuff and just kind of briefly tell people, how the heck are you in my studio right now? How do I even know you? Did I just bump into this guy on the side of the street in Noonan? No, it all goes back.
Dude, so this is a funny story. And you want to talk about, those of you out there, that you have to humble yourself, because it was quite a humbling experience. So Eric, actually, in the education, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, Eric was a teacher, a high school band director for a little while. Eric actually did his student teaching with me, and I was his cooperating teacher. So at one point in our past life, I was Eric's teacher, And I will never forget the day years later where Eric calls me and he goes, "Yeah, I'm going to leave teaching because now I'm going to be full-time real estate investor, and I've built my egg. I've built my fortune."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, whatever. You'll be back." And then he didn't come back. And then many times too, we would pass each other because we've always lived pretty close.
Yeah.
And then Eric would tell me he started moving to his next phase of his career. He was raising capital and stuff and kind of dropped those nuggets. But I was like, no, man, my stock portfolio is doing really, really well. And even at one point, I'd actually gotten into real estate investing a little bit before you and had a bad experience and jettisoned initially. But skipping part of the story to get to the end part, a couple years ago, we found out my wife and I were going to have our a third child. And I was like, oh, crap, I'm 40. And I had this moment of my current career. I can't do another 20 years working 60 to 80-hour work weeks as a high school teacher and as a coach.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it. So I picked up that phone. And I just remember one of many days where I called you and said, all right, Eric, your plan was better than my plan. Because at this point, he had been out and been an investor now for, 5 or 6 years?
Yeah.
It'd been a while. So clearly it had worked. And I called him and said, okay, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to read your book. I'm going to do all this stuff. I need you to teach me because your plans work. I mean, you were out of teaching in 5, 6 years?
7.
7 years.
I taught for 7 years. Yeah.
So, and, at this point, 18 years in. So, that was kind of it's a very an interesting thing, but I've followed you guys for a while. And I'll say this too, the biggest thing, and I hope you would agree, don't let me overstep, is to kind of reiterate something that you said earlier, and that is we didn't just call, we followed the steps that you and several others gave us and took action, and it was scary action.
Yeah.
Dude, that first real estate property that I purchased, I can't wait to talk about that on a future show. Scared the crap out of me.
I'm sure, because you're at an age where the decisions you make impact directly your children.
Yeah.
And that's a lot bigger than when Tiffany and I dove into it. We didn't have children yet. And we were able to take massive, risks. Heck, we rented out our primary property and moved into a camper. And we traveled from house to house to house in our camper.
Dude, that's living the life. I do have two teenagers now. I have a 16 and a 17-year-old. Mm-hmm. My oldest is getting ready to go to college. So next year I'll have one in college, one that's a senior, and one that's 2 years before starting pre-K. That's the Josh household. But I will say this for anyone that's listening to the show. I truly believe, because I'm living it, that at age 40 you can reinvent yourself. That you can do anything that you want to do, whether you are where Eric and Tiffany were, where you're doing that hard work that you guys deserve so much credit for, where you're literally living in the houses that you're renovating. I mean, I'm just going to sell it all and just go for it.
And we did.
Or
that was pre-kids, so I understand that it's different.
You guys are amazing. Or if you're out there like me, you're like, but I have a family, I'm 40, 50, 60 years old, and I just can't do it because that time of my life has passed. That's not true. I mean, I'm 24 months in now to building what I consider my dream. More importantly, I'm building who I want to become.
Yeah.
And a lot has changed in the last 2 years, and we did it all past age 40. And fun fact, we know somebody that attends one of our real estate meetups that you and I both go to, that he owns a couple hundred houses down in Grantville. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget the day where he said, yeah, and I didn't buy any of them until I was like 50 or something.
I think he was 55 when he got started.
Yeah.
And then by the time he was 63, he owned 600 houses, something like that.
Yeah, I was like, wow. Well, now I need to go get my life right and get started.
You have a little bit more staying power after you've worked a whole career, and you got a lot of funds built up. But that's not to say maybe you don't have funds that are built up. Real estate investing is for everyone, but it's not for everyone's mindset. You have to get in the mindset before you get into the action of it. Now, where do you start? Well, you start by immersing yourself in the community. You start by listening to podcasts like this one. Please go find about 20 others and start listening to those. A few other ones that you can go start checking out. Bigger Pockets probably shows 1 through about 200. Those are just prime shows on Bigger Pockets. There's some other, the Real Estate Guys radio show is a good one. You got any more?
I listen to a lot of stuff that just deals with leadership and mentality. But for me, the John Maxwell Leadership Podcast, I think, is great. The Andy Stanley Leadership Podcast is amazing. I like Chad Carson, the Coach Carson podcast. Yeah. He wrote the book, The Small and Mighty Real Estate Investor, where from his kind of area of real estate, he talks about not building massive portfolios, but he wants one 15-unit to 20-unit meaningful portfolio because he's trying to create time more than money. Yeah. And at my age, I identify with that a lot. Like, I don't care about being a multi-billionaire. I want time with my family.
Exactly.
That what's $1 million to me? It's money that I can use to buy time. I want time.
Yeah, and I think ultimately that's what we all really want. You know, you can only buy so many Lamborghinis and so many Rolexes or whatever it is.
Tesla Cybertruck.
Oh, no. Maybe in the future we'll talk about my disposition on EVs.
Oh,
anyways, but, you know, what was I even saying? I keep losing it, what I was saying.
You were picking on me in the Tesla Cybertruck.
Well, before that.
I don't know.
Money only buys so much. Eventually, you run out of things to buy, and then you're out of time. And that's the one thing people really want more of. So the fact that you can identify that now and say, I am going to stop trading my time for dollars and let my dollars go to work for me in different vehicles so that I can have more time, that's where you make true, incredible change.
That's it. Look, hey, we're at the end of the podcast. I get to do Tiffany's line, right?
You do?
Here we go.
Before we sign off, y'all, I do want to take a minute to invite y'all to in-person meetup that Josh and I host.
Yes, thank you.
Right now, it is Tuesday in June. And this Thursday, we are hosting our first Dealmaker Atlanta meetup. This is where you can come to get some information on how to be a successful real estate investor, how to live a better life, how to give back to your community. And this Thursday, we're really focusing in on the power of networking and overcoming limiting beliefs. Yes. And those are two really big things that are huge in being successful in real estate investing. So I hope if you're listening to this, maybe it's today you're listening to this and you're like, okay, I just heard about this, I'm going. I hope you'll join us. Head over to dealmakeratlanta.com. And
also would love for you to join our Facebook page. If you just search Dealmaker Atlanta, we have a Facebook group. And you don't even have to be in Atlanta. You could be in California. But if you just want to hang out and spend time with highly motivated people that are involved in real estate in many different forms, we'd love to have you in our Facebook group.
Absolutely. Right. All right. So now I guess you can do Tiffany's line.
So the part that I remember, then you have to finish it up. Okay. You ready? So thank you for joining us today on the On Purpose Investor. Remember, you only have one life, so live it purposefully.
Purposefully.
Because
you got to be full of purpose. Purposefully.
Purposefully. How did I do? Did I nail that?
You're not as attractive as her.
Well, I'm
sorry to say it.
That's okay. Tiffany, when you hear the show, I look forward to you giving me some feedback on how I can do better.
Y'all, it's been a great show. And y'all, I'm so excited that you've joined us here at the On Purpose Investor podcast and take time to listen. If you ever have anything that you want to hear us talk about, or maybe you want us to stop talking about something, I might not listen, but I do take all criticism, right? You know, I'm in that mindset now that I listen, I'm rubber, you're glue. You know, we all know that old saying, right? But anyways, thank you for dropping by and tuning in with us today, and we look forward to talking to you next week. If you love what you heard today, it would mean the world to us if you would take a moment to rate, review, and share this podcast with someone that you believe would benefit too. Sharing is the best way for us to grow and to develop a community to join you on your intentional investing journey.
In the meantime, come hang out with us on social media at On Purpose Investor, or sign up for our next course, newsletter, or meetup at onpurposeinvestor.com. But most importantly, go out, live your life, and do it on purpose.